The 35th floor of the glass tower gleamed in the Sunday afternoon light. Inside the conference room, tension crackled like static electricity as Rebecca Lane faced the most critical negotiation of her career. Across from her, Sheikh Omar Al-Farid spoke rapidly in Arabic, his words sharp with frustration. The translator had vanished without warning, leaving Rebecca's team helpless. Omar rose from his chair, preparing to leave. Outside in the hallway, 6-year-old Sophia Alvarez sat reading while her father David cleaned nearby. The Arabic words, drifting through the door, made her look up, and she walked into the room, speaking in perfect, crystalline Arabic that stopped everyone cold. David Alvarez had been cleaning office buildings for 7 years, ever since his wife Maria passed away from cancer. At 35, his hands bore the calluses of honest work, his back slightly bent from countless hours of mopping floors and emptying trash bins. But when he looked at his daughter Sophia, none of that mattered. She was his universe, his reason for waking at 4 each morning, his motivation for taking extra shifts whenever possible. Their small apartment in Queens wasn't much, but he'd filled it with something more valuable than luxury. Books, hundreds of them, collected from library sales, thrift stores, and garage sales, lined makeshift shelves he'd built from reclaimed wood. Every surface held stacks of encyclopedias, language guides, science, textbooks, and children's literature in multiple languages. David himself had only finished high school, dropping out of community college when Maria got pregnant, but he understood that education was the ladder his daughter would climb to reach heights he could only imagine. Sophia was no ordinary 6-year-old. While other children her age struggled with basic reading, she devoured texts in multiple languages with an appetite that astonished her teachers. Her mind worked differently, processing patterns and sounds with a clarity that seemed almost supernatural. 3 months ago, she'd discovered an old Arabic textbook at a community book exchange. Something about the flowing script captivated her. She'd begged David to find her more resources, and though he couldn't afford formal lessons, he'd managed to locate audio recordings at the public library and free online videos. Every evening, while David prepared their simple dinner, Sophia would sit at their tiny kitchen table, carefully tracing Arabic letters, whispering the sounds to herself until they became as natural as breathing. Rebecca Lane had built her reputation through 16-hour days and ruthless efficiency. At 30, she was the youngest CEO in her company's history, an achievement that came with crushing pressure from the board of directors. This deal with Sheikh Omar's consortium represented 2 years of careful cultivation, countless emails, and 3 trips to Dubai. If successful, it would secure her position and silence the whispers that she was too young, too inexperienced. The contract would bring $40 million in investment and create 300 jobs in the city. Everything hinged on this meeting. Sheikh Omar Al-Farid commanded respect wherever he went. At 48, he'd built an empire spanning real estate, hospitality, and technology across the Middle East. But beneath the designer thobe and carefully groomed beard beat the heart of a Bedouin boy who'd grown up reciting poetry under desert stars. He valued honor above profit, relationships above transactions. The missing translator wasn't just an inconvenience, it was an insult, a sign that these Americans didn't take him or his culture seriously enough to have a backup plan. The city around them pulsed with its usual Sunday energy. Street vendors called out in a dozen languages. Taxis honked their impatience, and somewhere a church bell competed with the call to prayer from a nearby mosque. This was New York at its most authentic. A place where worlds collided, and occasionally, miraculously, connected. The conference room had been meticulously prepared since dawn. Rebecca's assistant had arranged everything from the halal catering to the precisely cooled Arabian coffee served in golden-rimmed cups, imported specifically for this occasion. The contracts lay ready on the mahogany table, their pages crisp and official, requiring only signatures to transform months of negotiation into reality. The wall of windows offered a spectacular view of the city, the kind of view that was supposed to impress visitors, to remind them of American ambition and achievement. But as the minutes ticked by without their translator, Rebecca watched her carefully orchestrated plan crumble like ancient parchment exposed to air. Omar's patience snapped first, erupting like a desert storm. He launched into a rapid stream of Arabic, his hands gesturing sharply as he addressed his team of 4 advisors. They nodded grimly, gathering their papers with practiced efficiency, their faces masks of professional disappointment. Rebecca caught only one word she recognized from her limited Arabic studies: "Khalas." Finished. Her heart sank as she realized the magnitude of this failure. The board would crucify her at Monday's emergency meeting. 300 families wouldn't get those jobs she'd promised the mayor. Her entire future, everything she'd sacrificed and worked for, balanced on a knife's edge, tipping toward disaster. "Please, Sheikh Omar." Rebecca stood, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands, her practiced composure barely holding. "Give us 30 minutes. I promise we'll find another translator. This deal means everything to both our companies." Omar paused at the door, his hand on the brushed steel handle, turning back with eyes that held both disappointment and something like pity. He spoke again in Arabic, slower this time, as if hoping someone might magically understand. His words carried the weight of finality, the sound of opportunity walking away forever. Behind him, his advisors shifted uncomfortably, aware of the millions of dollars dissolving in this moment of cultural miscommunication. David had been wiping down the water fountains in the hallway when he heard the raised voices penetrating the conference room's heavy doors. Sunday overtime paid double, money he desperately needed for Sophia's upcoming school expenses and the winter coat she'd already outgrown. He'd brought her along because their regular babysitter was sick with the flu, settling her in the hallway with her favorite books and a promise to finish by 3 o'clock so they could visit the park before sunset. But the sounds coming from the conference room made him nervous. Rich people arguing usually meant someone like him would end up blamed for something, would lose their job over circumstances beyond their control. He'd seen it happen too many times before. Rebecca's assistant rushed past him, nearly knocking over his cleaning cart. Cell phone pressed to her ear, frantically calling translation services, all closed on Sunday, or demanding 4-hour minimums for emergency calls that would arrive too late. The city of 8 million people, and they couldn't find a single Arabic speaker available immediately. The irony wasn't lost on David, who passed dozens of Arabic-speaking taxi drivers and food cart vendors every day on his way to work. Inside the conference room, Omar's team had reached the door, their disappointment palpable. Rebecca's CFO was practically begging, offering to double their previous offer if they'd just wait, if they'd give them one more chance. But money wasn't the issue. Respect was, trust was, and both had been shattered by this seemingly small oversight that revealed a deeper carelessness, a fundamental lack of preparation that Omar found insulting. That's when Sophia walked in. She moved with the unconscious confidence of a child who hadn't yet learned to doubt herself, who hadn't yet been taught that some rooms weren't meant for people like her. Her blonde curls caught the afternoon light streaming through the windows as she approached Sheikh Omar directly, her small voice clear and surprisingly authoritative as she spoke in flawless classical Arabic. "Peace be upon you, honored uncle. Forgive the interruption. But I heard your words through the door. You said trust is like glass. Once broken, it cannot be mended. But my mother, before she went to heaven, told me that broken things can become art if we're brave enough to piece them together differently. Perhaps this moment isn't breaking but reshaping." The room froze in absolute stillness. Rebecca's hand stopped halfway to her phone. Omar's advisors exchanged stunned glances, their eyes wide with disbelief. Even the city noise seemed to pause, as if acknowledging this impossible moment. The air itself seemed to crystallize around this tiny girl, speaking the language of scholars and poets with the ease of a native speaker. David burst through the door seconds later, still clutching his mop, his face flushed with embarrassment and fear. "Sophia! I'm so sorry, everyone. Please forgive the interruption. Come on, baby. We need to go right now." But Omar raised his hand. His expression transformed from anger to wonder, from dismissal to fascination. He knelt slowly to Sophia's height, his knees creaking slightly, responding in Arabic. "And peace be upon you, little scholar. Where did you learn to speak the language of poetry with such grace?" Sophia smiled, the gap where she'd recently lost a tooth making her look even younger, switching effortlessly to English for the other's benefit, then back to Arabic for Omar. "From books, uncle, and from listening to recordings. My father says listening is how we learn to understand hearts, not just words. I listen to Arabic every night before sleep. The language sings to me in my dreams. Rebecca found her voice. Though it came out as barely a whisper, she's translating. Perfectly. This child is translating sophisticated Arabic perfectly. Omar stood slowly, his eyes moving from Sophia to David, taking in the work uniform stained with cleaning solutions, the tired eyes that spoke of double shifts and sacrificed sleep, the protective way the janitor positioned himself near his daughter like a guardian angel in a maintenance uniform. This remarkable child is yours? Yes, sir. I'm truly sorry for the disruption. We'll leave immediately. I know we don't belong here. Number Omar's word carried the authority of someone accustomed to obedience, but also a warmth that hadn't been there before. Stay, please. He turned to Rebecca. His entire demeanor shifted. It seems God provides solutions in unexpected packages. If you're willing, I would like this young lady to help us continue our discussion. Sometimes the universe sends exactly what we need in forms we don't expect. Rebecca looked at David, seeing him clearly for the first time. Not just the invisible man who emptied her trash and cleaned her office, but a father who'd somehow raised this remarkable child. A man who, despite working multiple jobs, had created an environment where genius could flourish. Would that be all right with you, Mr. Alvarez? David Alvarez. Sophia, honey. These are important people doing important work. We shouldn't interrupt. Sophia tugged on her father's sleeve, her blue eyes earnest. Daddy, Mrs. Rebecca needs help. Mama said we should always help when we can. She said that's how angels earn their wings on earth. The negotiation resumed with Sophia perched on a chair between the two parties, her thin legs swinging slightly above the floor as she translated complex financial terms with the ease of someone discussing playground games. She didn't just translate words, she conveyed tone, emotion, cultural context that even professional translators often missed. When Omar made a joke about camels and venture capitalists that relied on Arabic wordplay, she laughed before translating, explaining the pun to the American team, and her genuine delight broke through his remaining reserve. She became not just a translator, but a bridge. Her innocence and earnestness dissolving the tension that had calcified between the two parties. How does she know these technical terms? Rebecca whispered to David, who'd been convinced to sit nearby, though he perched on the edge of his chair as if ready to flee at any moment. She reads everything she can get her hands on. Last week, I found her with my old economics textbook from community college. Said it was interesting. She reads the business section of newspapers I bring home from recycling, medical journals from the hospital where I clean at night. She absorbs everything. He shook his head in amazement, his eyes never leaving his daughter. I never knew she'd learned Arabic to this level. She must have been practicing while I was at work, using the computer at the library. As the afternoon wore on, the atmosphere shifted from tension to collaboration, from suspicion to genuine partnership. Sophia occasionally asked for clarification, her questions so insightful that both parties paused to consider angles they'd overlooked. When discussion turned to community impact, she shared her own observation. My father works very hard, but he says honest work makes honest sleep. Maybe this deal can help more fathers sleep honestly. Maybe it can help children have more books. Omar's eyes softened visibly, a sheen of moisture appearing. In this American child speaking his mother tongue, he heard echoes of his own daughter Amira, lost to leukemia. 10 years ago, she would have been 16 now, perhaps as bright as this little one, perhaps changing the world with her own gifts. Tell me, young Sophia, who taught you our beautiful language? Nobody taught me exactly, Uncle. I found a book at the community center book exchange. It had beautiful letters like art, like birds flying in formation. Then I found recordings at the library. Mrs. Chen, the librarian, helped me find websites where I could hear proper pronunciation. She said languages are like music. You have to train your ear before your tongue. She switched to Arabic, her voice taking on a storytelling quality. I practiced every day, sometimes while Daddy was sleeping after his night shift. Arabic sounds like music mixed with mathematics. Each word has a family, roots that connect to other words like a great tree with spreading branches. It's like solving puzzles made of sound and meaning and history all at once. Omar laughed, a rich sound that transformed his stern face into something grandfatherly and warm. You understand the beauty of our language better than many native speakers who take it for granted. In my childhood in Saudi Arabia, I memorized the Quran by lamplight, learning that words carry not just meaning but music, as you say. My grandfather taught me that Arabic was the language God chose for his final revelation because it could hold multiple meanings in a single phrase, like light refracting through a prism. The contracts were reviewed line by line, with Sophia clarifying nuances that even a professional translator might have missed. Her understanding went beyond mere vocabulary. She grasped the cultural weight behind certain phrases, the implications that lurked between lines. When they reached a particularly complex passage about liability and force majeure, she paused, thinking carefully, her small forehead furrowed in concentration. Sheikh Omar is concerned that the insurance requirements might conflict with Sharia-compliant financing structures. He suggests adding a clause that allows for alternative arrangements that meet both American legal standards and Islamic financial principles. He says this would honor both traditions without compromising either. Rebecca's lawyer nodded appreciatively, making rapid notes. That's actually brilliant. It protects both parties while respecting religious considerations. I wouldn't have thought of that angle. By 5 o'clock, as the sun began its descent toward the Manhattan skyline, the primary agreement was reached. Omar stood, extending his hand to Rebecca, the handshake firm and meaningful, then surprising everyone by also shaking David's hand with equal respect. You have raised a remarkable daughter, Mr. Alvarez. In my culture, we say that children are the flowers of paradise. Your flower blooms with exceptional beauty and rare fragrance. David's eyes glistened with unshed tears. Thank you, sir. She's all I have in this world. Her mother would be so proud of what she did today. She is proud, Omar said quietly, his voice carrying absolute conviction. Mothers watch over their children from paradise. This I believe with all my heart. Your wife's spirit lives in this child's remarkable mind. Rebecca suggested they continue discussions over dinner to celebrate the breakthrough, but David hesitated, his discomfort obvious. We should get home. I don't. We don't really fit in those kinds of places. Sophia needs to do her homework for tomorrow. Nonsense, Rebecca said firmly, surprising herself with her vehemence. You're part of this success. Both of you. This deal wouldn't have happened without Sophia. The restaurant Rebecca chose was elegant but not ostentatious, with a private dining room that allowed for comfortable conversation away from curious eyes. David sat stiffly at first, unsure which fork to use, overwhelmed by the number of glasses at his place setting. But Sophia's natural ease helped him relax. She asked Omar about Dubai's architecture, about the mathematics of building in sand, about how skyscrapers could withstand desert storms. Her curiosity boundless and infectious. Your daughter sees connections others miss, Omar told David over the main course. Has she been tested for giftedness? The school wanted to skip her ahead 3 grades, maybe more. But I wanted her to have a normal childhood. Friends her own age. I don't want her to grow up too fast, to miss the simple joys of being young. Rebecca leaned forward, genuinely interested. It must be incredibly challenging, raising her alone while working multiple jobs. How do you manage it all? David's jaw tightened slightly, the pride of a man unaccustomed to pity or charity. We manage. Sophia understands our situation. She's never complained, never asked for things I couldn't provide. She knows that every book I bring home is a treasure, every library visit an adventure. Daddy works harder than anyone in the whole world, Sophia interjected, her voice fierce with loyalty. He says, money isn't wealth. Love is wealth. Time is wealth. Knowledge is wealth. We're very wealthy in all the ways that matter. Over dessert, as Sophia practiced writing Omar's name in Arabic script on her napkin, adding decorative flourishes she'd learned from studying Islamic art online, Rebecca found herself studying David, his hands, rough from work, scarred from industrial cleaners, moved with surprising gentleness as he helped Sophia with a difficult letter. His eyes, tired but kind, lit up whenever his daughter spoke. There was a dignity in his bearing that transcended his circumstances, a nobility that had nothing to do with wealth or position. "Tell me about Sophia's mother," Rebecca asked softly while Sophia was showing Omar her Arabic notebook, filled with months of painstaking practice. David's expression shifted, memories playing across his features like shadows and light. Maria was a teacher. Elementary school. 2nd grade. She believed every child had a gift waiting to be discovered, a light waiting to shine. When she got sick, when we knew the cancer was winning, she spent her last months recording herself, reading to Sophia, teaching her to love learning. She made hundreds of recordings, bedtime stories, lessons about kindness, songs in Spanish from her own childhood. She said knowledge would be Sophia's inheritance, better than any money we could leave her. She said Sophia would change the world one day. She sounds extraordinary. She was. Sometimes I see her in Sophia's eyes, that same curiosity about everything. That same belief that the world is full of wonders waiting to be discovered. The same faith that goodness matters more than success. Rebecca touched his hand briefly, surprised by her own boldness. She sees that in you too. The way you've preserved her mother's dream, working yourself to exhaustion to keep Sophia in books and learning materials. That's love in action. That's heroism, without a cape. Their conversation was interrupted when Omar stood to leave, his advisors gathering their things. There's a cultural exhibition next Saturday at the Metropolitan Museum, Islamic Art and Science Through the Ages. I would be honored if you and Sophia would attend as my personal guests. There will be scholars, artists, scientists, people Sophia should meet. David shifted uncomfortably, aware of the social gulf such an invitation represented. That's very kind, but we wouldn't want to impose. Please, Omar interrupted, his tone sincere. Sophia has bridged 2 worlds today. Let me show her more of the world she's chosen to understand. And you, Mr. Alvarez, would honor me with your presence. A father who raises such a child is a man I want to know better. Perhaps we have more to learn from each other than this single afternoon has revealed. Rebecca added quickly, I'll be attending too. It would mean a lot to me if you came, both of you. Sophia looked up at her father with eager eyes, hope shining in them. Please, Daddy? Omar uncle says there will be astronomers showing how ancient Arabs mapped the stars. They'll have real astrolabes we can touch. David couldn't refuse that face, had never been able to. All right, we'll come. The week that followed brought unexpected turbulence. Dark clouds gathering over their small triumph. Someone, likely a jealous competitor who'd lost the deal, leaked a twisted version of events to a gossip blog that specialized in corporate scandal. The headline read, Janitor uses child to manipulate billionaire business deal. The dark side of corporate America. The story painted David as a scheming opportunist who'd coached his daughter to interrupt the meeting, angling for money and position. It suggested he'd been planning this for months, that Sophia's language skills were part of an elaborate con. The article went viral within hours, shared by people who'd never met David but were quick to judge, quick to believe the worst. David discovered the story when his supervisor showed him the printout Tuesday morning, warning that the building management was reviewing his employment pending an investigation. The whispers followed him through the hallways he'd cleaned faithfully for 7 years. People who'd never noticed him before now stared with suspicion or false sympathy. Some moved their valuables when he entered offices, as if he might steal them. Others offered fake smiles that didn't reach their eyes. The weight of their judgment pressed down on him like a physical force. Maybe we shouldn't go to the museum, David told Sophia that Thursday evening, not wanting to explain why strangers were suddenly cruel, why kids at school were repeating things they'd heard their parents say. Maybe it's better if we stay home this weekend. But you promised, Sophia said, her disappointment clear. And Mrs. Rebecca called. She said, it's important we come. She said not to believe what people are saying. Rebecca had indeed called several times, leaving increasingly urgent messages. She'd hired a private investigator to dig into the source of the leak, discovering connections to a rival firm that had wanted Omar's investment. She'd also learned more about David, his honorable discharge from the military after serving 2 tours, his wife's teaching awards and the scholarship fund set up in her memory, his perfect employment record, despite taking time off for every one of Sophia's school events. Every detail painted a picture of integrity under pressure, of a man doing his best in impossible circumstances. She also confronted her own assumptions and blindness. How many times had she passed David in the hallways without really seeing him? How many other invisible workers kept her world running while she focused on spreadsheets and profit margins? The revelation of her own casual ignorance stung more than she expected. Saturday arrived gray and drizzly, matching David's mood. He'd pressed his one good suit, bought secondhand for Maria's funeral 4 years ago, and polished Sophia's school shoes until they shone like mirrors. She wore her favorite dress, blue like her eyes, with the small golden bracelet that had been her mother's, a quinceañera gift that Maria had treasured. The museum hall was packed with New York's elite, people who summered in the Hamptons and wintered in Aspen. David felt every stare, heard every whisper behind manicured hands. Some recognized him from the viral article, their eyes sliding over him with contempt or curiosity. He wanted to leave, to retreat to the safety of invisibility. But Sophia held his hand tightly, her excitement unwavering as she examined displays of astrolabes and illuminated manuscripts, reading the Arabic descriptions as easily as the English ones. Omar found them near an exhibit on mathematical innovations, standing before a display about al-Khwarizmi, the father of algebra. David, I heard about the lies being spread. In my country we have a saying, the dogs bark, but the caravan moves on. Pay them no mind. Truth has a way of revealing itself. It's affecting my job, my reputation. Maybe bringing Sophia here was a mistake. Maybe I should have kept her hidden, safe, from all this attention. The only mistake would be dimming your daughter's light because of shadow-minded people. Omar's voice carried conviction born from his own losses and struggles. I've lived long enough to recognize truth from fabrication, to know genuine goodness from calculated manipulation. You're an honorable man raising an exceptional child under difficult circumstances. That threatens people who've achieved less with more, who need to believe that success only comes from privilege. The exhibition featured a presentation space where scholars would discuss various artifacts. Unexpectedly, the scheduled speaker had fallen ill with food poisoning. The curator, knowing Omar was present, asked if he might say a few words instead. Omar agreed, but with a condition. I would like young Sophia Alvarez to join me. She understands something about Arabic culture that many scholars miss. Its heart, its soul, its living breath. The murmur through the crowd was immediate, some recognizing the name from the scandal. David wanted to refuse, to protect Sophia from the harsh spotlight and judgment, but she squeezed his hand. Mama said we shouldn't hide our light under bushels. She said that's fear talking, not wisdom. On the small stage, Sophia stood beside Omar, dwarfed by his presence but undiminished, her chin raised with quiet confidence. She waited as he spoke about the golden age of Islamic science, about poets and mathematicians who saw no division between art and arithmetic, between faith and reason. Then he nodded to her. Sophia stepped to the microphone, which had to be lowered significantly. She spoke first in Arabic, her young voice carrying surprising authority. In the name of the compassionate, the merciful. Language is not just words. It's a bridge between hearts, a key to locked doors of understanding, a light that shows us we are more alike than different. She switched to English, her words careful but confident. My daddy cleans buildings. He works very hard, so I can have books, so I can learn, so I can grow. Some people think that makes us less important, less worthy of respect. But I learned Arabic from library books and free websites because my daddy taught me that knowledge doesn't care about money. It only cares about hunger. Hunger to learn, to understand, to connect with other human beings across the beautiful differences that make us unique. The room was silent except for the sound of rain against the museum skylights. Sophia continued, alternating between Arabic and English. When I translated for Sheikh Omar and Mrs. Rebecca, I wasn't just changing words from one language to another. I was helping hearts speak to each other. That's what language does. It reminds us that we're all human. all hoping for better tomorrows, all hurting from our losses, all healing through connection and compassion. She looked directly at the audience, some of whom had been whispering about her father just minutes before. My mama died when I was 3, but she left me voices. Recordings of her reading, teaching, singing lullabies in Spanish. She spoke English and Spanish, and filled our home with both. Now I speak those, and Arabic too. Every language I learn is a way of keeping her alive, of proving that love transcends everything, even death. Every word I translate is a small prayer for understanding in a world that needs more bridges and fewer walls. Her small voice grew stronger. Sheikh Omar built tall buildings that touch the sky. Mrs. Rebecca builds businesses that create jobs for families. My daddy builds something too. He builds tomorrow by making today clean and safe for everyone. That's noble work. That's necessary work. And if a janitor's daughter can learn Arabic and help make a $40 million deal happen, then maybe we need to stop deciding who matters based on their job title or bank account. Maybe we need to see each other with clearer eyes and kinder hearts. The silence stretched for 3 heartbeats, 4, 5. Then someone began clapping, an elderly professor from Columbia. Then another joined, a diplomat from the UN. The applause built like thunder rolling across the city, people rising to their feet, some wiping their eyes. David stood frozen, tears streaming down his face as Sophia walked calmly back to him, taking his hand as naturally as breathing, as if she hadn't just challenged an entire room of powerful people to examine their prejudices. Omar took the microphone again, his voice thick with emotion. This child speaks truth. We adults often forget. I came to America angry about a missing translator, ready to walk away from a deal 2 years in the making. I'm leaving grateful for finding something more valuable. A reminder that wisdom has no age, no class, no single language. The deal I signed with Miss Lane's company will include a provision I'm adding right now, a scholarship fund for children like Sophia, whose minds hunger for knowledge, but whose circumstances limit access. It will be called the Sophia Alvarez Foundation for Linguistic Studies. He looked directly at the journalists present, his tone shifting to steel. And let me be crystal clear about Mr. David Alvarez. Any suggestion that he manipulated this situation is not just false, but insulting to everything I stand for. I've met presidents and princes, CEOs, and celebrities. Few have impressed me with their integrity, as much as this man who works 2 jobs to fill his daughter's world with books, instead of buying himself comfort. Anyone who continues to spread lies about him will answer to my legal team. I've already instructed them to pursue defamation charges against the original source of these rumors. Rebecca stepped forward, having made a decision that would reshape her company's culture. I want to add something. Effective Monday, Mr. Alvarez will be offered a position as our new community outreach coordinator. We need someone who understands what real work means, what real struggle looks like. Someone who can help us build bridges not just with international partners, but with the communities we claim to serve. This isn't charity. This is recognition that we've been blind to talent in our own building. How many other children like Sophia are out there? Brilliant, but overlooked, because their parents clean our offices instead of sitting in them. David started to protest, overwhelmed by the sudden change. I don't have a degree. I don't know anything about. You know about people, Rebecca interrupted. You know about dignity in difficult circumstances. You know about raising hope in hopeless situations. That's what we need. The rest can be learned. The following weeks brought rapid change, tectonic shifts in their small world. The scandal story was retracted after legal pressure and the revelation of corporate sabotage. The journalist who wrote it issued a public apology, admitting he hadn't verified his source. David accepted the position after Sophia convinced him it was what Maria would want, that it was a chance to help other families like theirs. He insisted on starting part-time, wanting to prove himself, but within a month, his insights into community needs had shaped 3 new initiatives that Rebecca's board praised as innovative and essential. Sophia continued attending her regular school, but spent afternoons at a language institute. Her scholarship, covering not just Arabic, but Mandarin and French, She became something of a sensation, interviewed by education magazines and invited to speak at conferences, though David worked hard to keep her grounded, reminding her that gifts came with responsibilities, that privilege, even earned privilege, meant helping others climb the same ladder. Rebecca found herself drawn to their small family, joining them for Saturday library trips and Sunday dinners in their Queens apartment. Her relationship with David evolved slowly, built on mutual respect and shared values, rather than the superficial attractions of her previous relationships. She learned to see the city through his eyes, not just glass towers but the people who cleaned them, not just deals but the lives they affected. She discovered the beauty of corner bodegas and community gardens, of families gathering in public parks because their apartments were too small for hosting, of children doing homework in laundromats while their parents worked third shifts. Omar visited monthly, becoming an unexpected grandfather figure to Sophia. He taught her classical Arabic poetry, the verses of Rumi and al-Mutanabi, while she taught him American idioms that made him laugh, explaining why Americans said piece of cake when they meant easy, or break a leg when they meant good luck. Their friendship, built on a moment of crisis resolved by a child's courage, became a model for the broader partnership between their companies, featured in business journals as an example of successful cross-cultural collaboration. 3 months after the museum event, they gathered again at the harbor where Maria's ashes had been scattered years before. The autumn sun painted the water gold as Omar poured traditional mint tea from a silver pot he'd brought from Dubai, a family heirloom his grandmother had used. "In my culture," he said, watching the steam rise from the glasses, "we believe that some meetings are written in the stars before we're born, that God puts people in our path exactly when we need them, not a moment before or after." Sophia, now more confident but still sweetly earnest, responded in Arabic. "Mama used to say something similar. She said angels sometimes forget to wear their wings, so they look like regular people. But if you pay attention, you can see them anyway. You can see them in the janitor, who makes sure children have safe schools, in the teacher who stays late to help struggling students, in the businessman who remembers that deals are really about people." David pulled his daughter close, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, still baby-sweet despite her growing wisdom. "What do you see when you look at us, little one?" She looked around their small circle. Her father, who sacrificed everything for her education. Rebecca, who'd learned to see beyond surfaces and was slowly becoming part of their family. Omar, who'd found healing for his grief in mentoring her, and smiled with the wisdom of a child who'd known loss and found love again. "I see a family," she said simply. First in English, then Arabic, then Spanish, for her mother's spirit. Different kinds of family, but family nonetheless, the kind you choose, the kind that chooses you back. As the sun descended toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of rose and amber, they sat in comfortable silence. The city hummed its eternal song around them, millions of lives intersecting in ways both visible and hidden. Sophia pulled out a small notebook, writing Arabic letters that looked like birds taking flight, adding her own verse to the endless poem of human connection. She was working on a children's book, a story about a girl who spoke the language of hearts. Illustrated with Arabic calligraphy, she was learning to paint. David watched his daughter write, thinking of Maria, feeling her presence in the salt breeze and the golden light. He'd spent 3 years believing he was just surviving, just getting through each day for Sophia's sake. But here, surrounded by unlikely friends who'd become family, watching his daughter bridge worlds with the power of words and the purity of her heart, he understood that survival had transformed into something more. They were thriving. They were building. They were proving that sometimes the most extraordinary moments come from the most ordinary people, that janitors' daughters could change the course of million-dollar deals, that billionaires could find wisdom in 6-year-old philosophers, that love and learning could triumph over loss and limitation. The tea grew cold as darkness approached, but none of them moved to leave. There would be time enough tomorrow for contracts and classes, for work and growth. Tonight, they simply existed together, 4 souls brought together by chance or fate or divine intervention. Watching the lights of the city reflect on the water like earthbound stars. Each one, a story, a possibility, a bridge waiting to be built between hearts that had learned to speak the same language of hope.